Today we're making what I consider to be the best chicken and rice dish on earth, a flavourful and tender chicken kabsa. It's loaded with flavours from over 10 wonderful spices, and then it's served with a nutty fruity topping. This amazing meal is the national dish of many Gulf countries, and when you taste it you'll understand why.
If you're new here, I'm Obi. I'm a chicken thigh guy and I want to get you cooking amazing Middle Eastern food at home. Despite not eating kabsa for almost 10 years, I still remember how mind-blowingly delicious it was, and I want you to experience it with me. My wife and I did some research and came up with this recipe, which is even better than I remember. It's the ultimate chicken and rice recipe, and once you make it, I guarantee this will be on permanent rotation in your kitchen. So let's get right to it.
So the first step of making kabsa is cooking the meat and making a kabsa stock. I've opted to use a large whole chicken in this recipe. This is the most common way of making kabsa, but it could easily be substituted with lamb or beef instead. I'll start by breaking down the chicken into 4 pieces using a magic technique that I learnt a while back. If you want to learn how to do this, I teach Chicken Butchery 101 in my chicken casserole video. Following that, you'll take 2 onions and chop them into a medium to large dice. When you're done, break out your pestle and mortar because you'll need to crush 1 to 2 black lemons. These sun-dried lemons are known as Loomi in the Middle East, and they give food a complex citrus flavour with many umami notes. If you're worried about buying and never using them again, they go great in all sorts of marinades, and you can buy them at any Middle Eastern or Southeast Asian grocery store. I'll leave a couple of links for them in the description box down below. When they're all pulverised, we're ready to make the stock. Now place a large pot on your stove over a medium heat and add in 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. When it has heated, add in your diced onions and saute these for around 5 minutes. While they cook, we'll assemble the array of spices going into the stock. Firstly, we have 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon each of turmeric, cumin, ground coriander and black pepper, then half a teaspoon of ground ginger, cardamom, paprika and the black lemon powder from earlier. Finally, a 1/4 teaspoon each of cinnamon and cloves. When the onions have softened and wilted, we'll add all of these spices as well as 30 grams or 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Mix everything together well until the onions are coated in the spices and tomato. Fry that mixture for about 2 to 3 minutes, then you can add in the 4 pieces of chicken. Stir to combine the chicken with the sauteed onions and spices, and make sure to get all the chicken pieces evenly coated. Once they are, add in 400 grams or 14 ounces of chopped tomatoes. I prefer using canned ones in this recipe as they tend to have more flavour than most varieties of fresh tomatoes. After that, add in 250 milliliters or 1 cup of water to the pot and 2 large garlic cloves. Turn the heat up to high and give the pot a good mix. Once it comes to a simmer, turn the heat down to medium and then cover it. Set a timer for 25 minutes and allow it to simmer. When the time is up, your chicken will be mostly cooked and you'll have a fragrant red broth in the pot. Remove the chicken and we'll now strain the broth to remove any pieces of tomato or onion. Use a good strong sieve here because you don't want this to happen to your stock. Make sure to squeeze as much broth out of the vegetables as possible, and when done you should have a beautiful stock that looks like this. With the stock ready, we can make the rice, but before we do that, take 4 medium onions and slice them into thin strips like so. Take the now empty pot that you made the stock in and add 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil to it. Turn the heat up to medium and we'll add in a bunch of whole spices. I'm adding in 2 black lemons, 1 cinnamon quill, 1 teaspoon each of coriander seeds and black peppercorns, half a teaspoon of cumin seeds, 5 cardamom pods, 3 cloves and 2 bay leaves. Add these into the pot and allow them to fry for about 2 minutes to awaken their flavours. Once you can smell the spices, add in half of the sliced onion strips and mix well with the spices. After sauteing for a couple of minutes, add a small splash of water to the pot to help deglaze it. Saute the onions for about 5 to 8 minutes until they have completely softened, and they should resemble this. Next you'll add in 30 grams or 2 tablespoons of tomato paste and 2 teaspoons of salt. Follow that up with 2 cups of washed basmati rice. Wash this the legal minimum of 3 times before adding it in, otherwise I'll be thoroughly disappointed with you. Mix this with the onions and spices until it's a pretty uniform colour, and then flatten it out into a level layer. Take 2 red and 2 green chilies and poke a few holes in each one before placing them on top of the rice. Now pour the red stock into the pot until you've just about submerged the rice. Make sure not to use all the stock as we'll need some to glaze the chicken, and if you need more liquid for the pot then just add in some water. Turn the heat up to medium-high and bring the pot to a light boil, then cover it with a tight-fitting lid. Let it boil for about 2 minutes until the liquid evaporates and is absorbed into the rice, then turn the heat down to low and allow it to steam for 20 minutes. While that steams, we'll make the kabsa topping, and this is what really takes the dish to the next level. I'll be using 40 grams or a quarter cup of these giant raisins in the topping, but feel free to use regular raisins when you're making this. I'll also be using 40 grams or a quarter of a cup of golden sultanas, and if you only want to buy one kind of fruit, then I'd recommend using these in place of the raisins. Add them to a bowl and pour in enough water to submerge them and leave them to soak. You should do this before making the stock so they get at least 1 hour of soaking time. You'll also need to take 150 grams or 5 1/4 ounces of carrots and shred them on a large grater, so you end up with something that looks like this. For the nuts in the topping, I chose to use 60 grams or 2 ounces of slivered almonds. You can also use flaked almonds instead, or even cashews or pine nuts to give the topping a nice crunch. Melt a tablespoon of butter in a pot over medium heat, then add your chosen nuts in there. Fry them for about 3 to 4 minutes until they are toasted and develop a light brown colour. Remove them from the pot immediately and spread them out on a paper towel to drain off the butter. Clean out the pot and then add in 70 milliliters or 4 tablespoons of vegetable oil over a medium-high heat, and add in the remaining 2 sliced onions. These will fry in the oil for about 10 to 12 minutes, stirring the pot every couple of minutes until they develop a deep dark brown colour. Once they do, drain the onions on a paper towel and remove any that are too charred. Let them cool and then we're ready to make the topping. Add your shredded carrots, toasted nuts and your fried onions to a bowl, then drain and add the raisins and sultanas. In a small bowl or plate, add the spices for the topping. Half a teaspoon each of black lemon powder, black pepper, turmeric, ginger, cloves, cinnamon, cumin, cardamom and salt. Add about a tablespoon of oil to the spices and mix them together into a slurry, then pour that into the bowl with the other ingredients. Mix everything together very thoroughly until all the ingredients are evenly combined and you have something that looks like this. One thing I'll say is that you can easily turn this into a one-pot recipe by doing these steps before making the stock. So the topping is assembled, rice is steaming, we can now finish up the dish. Place the chicken on a baking sheet lined with foil and then coat the skin of each piece liberally with some of the remaining stock. Bake this in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes at 180 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and when it comes out the skin will be nicely glazed and crispy. Now when the rice is done steaming, open up the lid and it should be almost perfectly cooked. Add all of the topping on top of the rice and cover it once more. The residual heat and steam in the rice should now cook the topping. After about 5 to 10 minutes of steaming on low heat, the carrots should have wilted partially and you'll now remove the topping from on top of the rice. Once you've removed as much as you can, use a fork to fluff up the rice. To serve, get a large plate or platter and fill it up with loads of that fluffy kabsa rice. Add a layer of the nut, carrot and onion topping to the rice and then top it with some of the chilies and the glazed chicken. Finally garnish it with some more nuts and a few parsley leaves. And there you have it, one amazing chicken kabsa. Now while this recipe might seem a bit complex, you can simplify and take shortcuts by not straining the stock and just cooking it all in one pot or a pressure cooker. I'm certain that if you follow the theme of this dish, it will still taste amazing. This is definitely one of the world's best chicken and rice recipes, and I guarantee this will be a real crowd pleaser at your next dinner party. Now let's jump right to the taste test.
Whoa. Wow. Honestly, the flavours of this kabsa are amazing. If you were looking at the spices and thinking that it's too much, trust me, this is perfectly seasoned chicken and rice. Despite the colour, it isn't that spicy in terms of heat, and if you wanted to kick it up a notch, it would taste amazing. The topping we made just rounds out the whole dish and elevates it to the next level. If you haven't made a dish from the channel yet, then this would be a great place to start. Thank you for watching, and be sure to click the like, share and subscribe buttons so the YouTube algorithm notices us. If you make this, be sure to send us some photos on Instagram. As always, thanks to our Patreon supporters for making this video possible. If you like the recipe and want to help us make more like this, then consider becoming a patron. The link and recipe are in the description box down below, and I'll be back next week with another recipe.